All right, number 8, we have function notation, and we want to find f of -1 given the function 4x plus 2. So f of -1, that just simply indicates that you want to replace the x with the -1. So 4, replace the x with the -1, and then solve. So this will give us a -4 plus 2, and then we get -2. So f of -1 equals -2. All right, now part 2, we want to find f of 4. So same thing, just replace the x with a 4. So 4, replace the x with a 4, plus 2 gives us 16 plus 2, which just gives us 18. All right, number 9, we have a more complex function. I thought this was focused, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a more complex function. H of x, 5x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 2. And we want to plug in a -3. -3 cubed plus 3, -3 in parentheses, squared plus 3, it's -3 plus 2. Okay. -3 times itself 3 times will give us a -27, and then times 5 will give us -110. A -3 squared will give us a +9, times 3 will give us a +27. -3 times -3, I'm sorry, +3 times -3 gives us a -9, and then plus 2. So at the end of the day, when we combine all of these terms, I just think about the 2 and the 27 gives me 29. Take away 9, I get 20. And then -110 from 20 will give us a -90. Okay, so that's a lot of math. So you can also use the calculator, and I'll show you how to get that answer. Anytime you have these functions, you can do this. Okay, so I am going to insert this equation in y equal. So y equals this top left button. I'm going to do 5, and then x is right next to this alpha button. It has x, t, and theta and n. You're going to use that to get your x. And then we got to raise it to the 3rd power. So there's 2 ways you can do it. Either you can do this house top right above division, and then do the number 3. Okay, that's the way it's going to look. Okay, I'm going to delete this out. That's one way to do it. The other way is you can go to math, and then you notice option number 3 has that little cube. So if you just hit number 3, it pops up 5x to the 3rd. And that's the only one number besides square that we can do and make it look like an exponent. Plus 3x, and then the square button is catty corner from 7, and then plus 3x and then plus 2. So once you get this, we're going to do second and this graph button here to see the table. Okay. And we're looking for the -3. So notice it's going from 0 into the positive. So if I want to see the negatives, I need to arrow up. So when I see -3, it's giving me -115. So I've made some error in my math, probably with the first part here. So -115, so let me check that. Second quit, -3 raised to the third times 5. Yeah, -135, and I wrote a -110. So that was my error. And that's why it's always good to check. So we should have got a -115. Okay, so be careful with those because, again, that's a lot of math. So -115. All right, now part 2, we're going to do the same thing by plugging in a 2. Now the nice thing about if you type it in the calculator, that equation is still there. So all I have to do is just go back to second and graph to see that table. And now all I have to do is look at h of 2. So if I come down here, h of 2, we get 60. So it is good to practice plugging it in with smaller numbers, but with these bigger, more complex equations, it's still good to write them out, but also verify and check because it's easy to make a mistake just as easy as I just tried to multiply mentally and made that mistake. So just be careful.